Hi, everyone. Today we are talking about something that might feel a little too real for some of you. You might not believe in prayer until you hear what happened to my marriage. There was a night I sat alone on the front porch. My wife was packing her bags. No yelling, no cheating, just two people who had become strangers in the same house. And that night, with nothing left to say, I did the only thing I could. I prayed. And I'm telling you, something shifted, not in her, not right away, but in me. You never think it'll be your marriage. When we first got married, I honestly thought we'd never argue. We were best friends, prayed together, laughed a lot. We even said, we're not like those couples who fight about dishes or laundry. Famous last words, right? Over the years, life crept in. Not in big, dramatic ways, just the quiet, exhausting erosion of connection. Work got busier. We had kids. Bills piled up. Her mother got sick. I got promoted, but I was never home. We talked logistics more than love. And slowly we stopped talking altogether. It wasn't a sudden explosion. It was a slow fade. And I'll never forget the moment I realized it. We were sitting at the dinner table, eating in silence. Not mad, just gone. She looked up and said, I don't know who we are anymore. I nodded, and that scared me more than if she had yelled. We didn't hate each other. We just didn't know how to reach each other anymore. One evening I came home late again. She was sitting in the living room with her suitcase. She looked at me with tired eyes and said, I'm not leaving because I hate you. I'm leaving because I miss feeling alive. There were no fireworks, no blame, just a quiet heartbreak. And that night when the door closed behind her, I sat in the hallway, absolutely shattered. I had read enough books, watched enough podcasts. I knew what I was supposed to do, but I had no strength left to fight. So I whispered one prayer. It wasn't eloquent. It was desperate. God, I don't even know if I can save this, but if there's still something left, show me. I want to be honest with you. Nothing magical happened that night. She didn't come back. She didn't call. But I changed. That prayer opened a door in my heart I had slammed shut. Instead of blaming her, I started asking, what have I stopped doing? When did I stop pursuing her? When did I stop listening? Really listening? I began journaling every day, not about her, but about me, my anger, my exhaustion, my fears. And I kept praying. Not for her to come back, but for me to become someone worth coming back to. And slowly, something shifted. Not in her, in me. The first few days after she left felt like I was walking through bomb. I'd wake up, pour a cup of coffee, sit at the table, and stare at the chair she used to sit in. The silence in the house was deafening. Not angry silence, just emptiness. I wanted to pray, I really did. But what do you say to God when your marriage is slipping through your fingers and you might be partly to blame? I started with what I called my mirror prayer. Every morning I'd stand in front of the bathroom mirror, look at the tired man looking back at me and say, God, I don't know how to fix this, but I know I need to change. And that simple confession, spoken out loud, became the start of something new. I began realizing something. For years I had been building walls instead of bridges. Not intentionally, I wasn't cruel, but I was guarded. Every time she criticized me, I took it personally. Every time I felt overwhelmed, I shut down. I thought I was protecting our peace by avoiding conflict. But really, I was emotionally checking out. I prayed every day that week, God, show me what I haven't been willing to see. That's when I remembered something small, something so subtle it hurt. One evening years ago, she came home crying. She had a bad day at work. She started talking, and I, like the fix-it guy I was, interrupted her mid-sentence with advice. She stopped, looked down, and said quietly, sometimes I don't need solutions. I just want to know you hear me. And you know what I did? I shrugged it off, thought she was being too sensitive. But that sentence came back to me during prayer like a sledgehammer to the heart. I realized I hadn't been her safe place. I'd been her roommate with good intentions. Now let me say something clearly. Prayer doesn't always fix things right away. Sometimes prayer is less about changing your circumstances and more about changing you. It's like spiritual heart surgery, and sometimes it hurts before it heals. Every night before bed, I'd kneel and say, God, help me love her better. even if she never comes back. That kind of prayer strips away pride. It humbles you. It teaches you to love without strings. I began writing letters I never sent. Apologies for moments I brushed past her emotions. Memories of when I should have hugged her but walked away instead. Hopes of what I still believed we could be. One day I wrote, I finally see you not just as my wife, but as a woman who needed someone to fight for her heart. I'm sorry I stopped showing up. And then I prayed over that letter like it was holy. 3 weeks passed, still no calls, no texts. Then one night I felt a nudge. Not an audible voice, just a strong stirring in my heart. Reach out, not to get her back, just to say something kind. I texted, hey, no pressure to respond, just wanted to say thank you for all the years you stood by me. I'm learning a lot right now about you, about myself. I'm praying for your peace. She didn't reply, but I slept like a baby that night. Because for the first time in years, I wasn't trying to win an argument. I was just trying to love her well, even from a distance. About a week later, she texted back. Just one sentence. Thank you, that meant more than you know. And that was it. No promises, no reunion. But it was something. It was a crack of light, and I kept praying. God, help me become the man who creates safety, not just stability. Help me listen, not just respond. Teach me to cherish, not just provide. Somewhere between the prayers and the silence, I stopped praying for her to come back, and I started praying that I'd be ready if she ever did. Because let me tell you something that humbled me. If God had brought her home too soon, she would have come back to the same man who drove her away. And that thought, it broke me. Because I realized this healing wasn't about winning her back. It was about becoming new, so I stayed with the silence. And God stayed with me. I started reading Proverbs every morning, just one chapter. Not for marriage advice, but for wisdom. I wasn't trying to get her anymore. I was trying to grow into the kind of man who could keep her heart safe. You know how when guests are coming over, we scramble to clean the house? But just on the surface? That was me for years. I was present. I paid the bills. I smiled at the right moments. But deep down, I never invited her into my real fears, my real doubts, or my weaknesses. Prayer became my cleanup crew. Every time I sat with God, it felt like He was saying, let's clear this out together. The shame, the pride, the fear that you're not enough. I began journaling the lies I believed. I have to have it all together. If I show weakness, she'll lose respect. I'm better at fixing than feeling. And I started rewriting them in prayer. You're not perfect, but you're growing. Vulnerability builds trust, not weakness. God isn't asking for performance. He's asking for presence. One morning I was brushing my teeth, looked in the mirror and whispered, you're not the same man who stood here 3 months ago. It wasn't pride, it was peace. I still missed her terribly, but I didn't feel desperate anymore. I felt ready, not for a reunion, but for whatever God had next. And that shift, that's the kind of miracle prayer brings, not just answered requests, but transformed hearts. It was a Saturday, late afternoon. I was folding laundry, yes, I do that now, and there was a knock at the door. It was her. Hair pulled back, eyes tired. I froze. She said, I'm not here to come back. I wanted to see you. I heard you've changed. We sat at the kitchen table, the same one where we used to argue in silence. This time there was warmth, gentleness. She asked, what happened to you? And I said, I started praying more than I talked, listening more than defending. And I started missing you instead of just missing being married. Her eyes welled up. So did mine. We didn't talk about the past. We didn't plan a future. We just sat. Two people who had been broken and were learning how to heal. Before she left that day, I asked if I could pray for her. She nodded. I reached out, hands trembling, and prayed a simple prayer. God, thank you for her heart, for her courage, for the years she carried us. Help her feel seen, safe, and loved, no matter what tomorrow looks like. She squeezed my hand, whispered, that's the first time I've felt peace in months. She left. No promises, no labels, but something holy had passed between us. And I realized prayer hadn't fixed our marriage. It had resurrected what I thought was dead, first in me, then maybe in us. After that kitchen table moment, I'll admit I half expected her to come home the next day. You pray, you change, you wait, she notices. And now the happy ending, right? Nope. She didn't call for 2 weeks, and when she finally did, it wasn't to talk about us. She just said, "Can you pray for my mom? She's in the hospital." And you know what? That felt sacred, because for the first time in months, she saw me as someone she could call when things got hard. Not to fix, but to stand in prayer. And that was enough. If I could go back and tell the man I was 6 months ago one thing, it would be this. Healing doesn't always look like progress. Sometimes it looks like surrender. Some weeks she'd text me sweet messages. Some weeks she'd go completely quiet. Once I saw her tagged in a friend's photo, out at a bar, laughing. For a moment, jealousy flooded my chest like a storm. But then the Spirit whispered, "You prayed for her peace." That's what peace looks like. I was learning to trust that healing might not always include me directly, but it could still be because of what God was doing in me. And that was enough. It was a rainy Tuesday when she finally agreed to meet for dinner, same diner we used to go to on anniversaries. She wore a gray sweater, no makeup, but she was glowing. We didn't talk much at first, just small things, her dog, the weather, the best pie on the menu. Then she said it. "You're different. I don't know what happened, but you're softer, like you've laid something down." I looked her in the eye and said, "I laid down the need to be right and the fear of being wrong." She took a deep breath, nodded slowly, and whispered, "That was always the part that scared me most, how hard you could be." I didn't defend myself, didn't justify it with pressure or stress. I just said, "I'm sorry, I didn't know how much I was hurting you. But I've been learning, and I'll keep learning, even if this never becomes what it once was." She smiled, half pain, half peace, and said, "I don't want what it once was. I want something new." That line hit me deep, because I wasn't praying to get the old us back. I was praying for a new kind of love, one that could only be born after brokenness. Funny thing about prayer, it doesn't just change your relationship with people, it changes your identity within the relationship. I stopped being the fixer and started being the friend. I stopped planning dates to impress her and started showing up to support her. I helped clean out her mom's apartment after she passed. I made her soup when she had the flu. Not to win her back, but because I loved her, and now I knew how to love without keeping score. One day she texted, "You've become the safest person in my life." And I wept, because that's what prayer does. It rebuilds you into a sanctuary. We were getting close, closer than we had in years. I thought we were finally back. Then she told me she'd started seeing a therapist, and one thing became clear. She wasn't sure she wanted to be married again. To anyone, it gutted me. I went home, laid on the floor, and cried out, "God, what else do you want from me?" And I heard nothing, just silence. But then I remembered something from Scripture. When Elijah sat in the cave, waiting for God to speak, it wasn't the earthquake, not the fire, not the wind. It was a still small voice. That voice whispered to me, this was never about control. This was always about trust. I breathed in, wiped my face, and whispered back, "Okay, even if it doesn't end the way I want, I'll still choose to love." Weeks passed, we still texted, still met for coffee. Then one night she said, "I've started praying again." I couldn't believe it. She hadn't prayed in over a year, hadn't even wanted to say his name. But she looked at me and said, "It's not because of church, not even because of a sermon. It's because of you. Watching you change made me wonder if maybe God really was listening all along." I swallowed the lump in my throat, and I said, "He always was, even when we weren't." That was the night I knew something sacred was happening. Not flashy, not fast, but foundational. God was building something new between us, brick by brick. And this time, he was the architect. It was a Thursday afternoon when I asked her, not for a second chance, not for closure, but for dinner. Just you and me, no pressure, just good food, like the old days. She hesitated, then typed back, "Okay, but I'm not promising anything beyond dinner. I smiled. That was more than enough, because prayer had taught me something the world never could. Peace isn't getting everything you want. It's being fully present with what you have. We met at a quiet restaurant on the edge of town, one we used to visit when we were first married. No music, no loud chatter, just soft lighting and memories in the air. She wore a deep green dress and a silver necklace I hadn't seen in years. I could tell she'd put in effort, but not for me, for herself, and honestly, that made me proud of her. We talked about everything but us. The news, our son, her garden, a book she was reading about grief and healing. Then just before dessert, she said, "Can I ask you something?" I nodded. "What changed you? I mean, really, not the short answer. What made you go from the man who shut me out to this man sitting in front of me?" I took a breath and said, "I lost everything except the ability to pray. So I did, every day, not for you to come back, but for God to help me become someone worth coming back to." She was quiet for a long time. Then she whispered, "I noticed, and it made me want to pray again too." After dinner, we didn't rush out. We just sat there quiet, letting the weight of the moment settle. And then she reached across the table and took my hand. No words, no promises, just touch, soft, familiar, real. Tears welled up in my eyes, not because everything was fixed, but because something had finally begun. "I don't know where this goes," she said, "but I'm willing to keep walking if you are." I nodded, not like a man who just won something, but like a man who had been given something sacred. She didn't move in the next day, didn't throw away her apartment keys or make a grand declaration. She just started spending weekends at home again, helping in the kitchen, reading on the porch, leaving her coffee mug in the sink like she used to. One night, I walked by the bedroom and saw her asleep with her Bible open beside her. I stood there frozen, because for months I thought I'd lost both her and the God we once believed in. But he was here, and so was she. Not as the same people, but as two people who had learned to fight, not against each other, but for each other. We started praying together again. It was awkward at first, short prayers, quiet ones, but they were honest. "Lord, thank you for today, even if it was messy. God, help me listen better tomorrow. Jesus, thank you that we're still trying." And every prayer stitched another piece of the old wounds together. Not with the old thread, but with something stronger. "Grace, it's been 3 years. She's still here. I'm still learning. We're still not perfect, but we're whole. We talk more, laugh more, pray more. Sometimes she still needs space. Sometimes I still fall back into old habits. But now we know how to say, 'I'm sorry. I forgive you.' Let's pray." If your marriage is hanging by a thread, if you're the only one still hoping, if you feel like prayer is useless, I get it, I do. I've been there, on the floor, alone, angry at a silent heaven. But friend, listen to me. God wasn't silent. He was working on the inside of me, preparing me for a new kind of love. Prayer didn't fix my marriage overnight. Prayer fixed me first, so that love could come home and stay. Has prayer ever changed something in your life? Share your story in the comments. You never know who might need to hear it today.